Hey everybody, it's Thursday for Bombcast Revengeance. I'm your host this time, Jeffrey Grubb. I have an all-star cast here to discuss Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I believe that is the TM trademark name. No twos in there, no remakes in there. It's a rebirth. To talk about this game, I've assembled Mike Minotti, who's looking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. How are you feeling?
Happy 40th birthday to my older brother, AJ. I am sleep deprived, but that's okay. Got the job done.
TurboShawn McDowell, how are you doing? You finished this game a couple days ago, right? So
I did.
you get some
2
sleep
days
last
ago.
night? Okay.
I got some sleep last night. I'm still gonna hit you with the with the wark and not the quack, because I'm wild and untamed today, baby.
Tamoor Hussain, 5,000 words, huh?
Yeah, you know, sometimes you start typing and then you never stop. And then you're like, this is a bad idea, but I don't care.
Lucy James is here. Lucy, how far are you into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
35 hours at the end of chapter 10.
Oof. It's a big, beefy game, and to help us figure it all out, Emma Fyffe. Emma, how are you doing in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
I'm just laughing so hard because Lucy said 35 hours, end of chapter 10. At the end of chapter 10, I think I was at 65 hours.
Yes, it's that kind of game.
I was traveling.
It's that kind of game,
Yeah.
which just tells you how much of my life I have spent activating Remna Wave Towers and mostly playing Queen's Blood.
We will talk about Queen's Blood and whatever activating a tower is in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I have not spent really any time with this game. I'm going to facilitate this conversation. I think maybe let's just start off. And everyone's just going to give your basic overall opinion to let people know we're not going to get into spoilers in this episode pretty much at all. We are prohibited from doing that under the agreement of our embargo, but we wouldn't do that for this episode anyhow. It doesn't make a lot of sense. No one's had the chance to play it, and there's enough different here that it's going to be surprising. We want everyone to be able to experience that themselves. But let's start. Tell me how you're feeling about it. Let's start with you, Emma. How did you find Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
I have to preface this with saying that Final Fantasy VII, the original game, like literally made me the gamer I am today. I love JRPGs. I didn't have a Super Nintendo. We were a Sega household. So Final Fantasy VII 1997 was the first JRPG I ever played. I was 11 years old when that game came out. And so it was a very impressionable age. And it's difficult for me to be critical of this game just because of the nostalgia factor. And for me, the way that the story has unfolded thus far, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through, I'm a bit further along than Lucy, has been thrilling. I have cried a lot. This game is attempting to destroy me emotionally. And I will say, though, that as much as I am really, really enjoying it, there is an aspect that does kind of annoy me, which I'm sure we will discuss in greater detail as we get further into this. But overall, and it's difficult for me to say at this point whether I would like deduct a point from the game, given that. But then I think about games like, for example, in 2020, when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, that was not my game of the year. Hades was. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's like, I absolutely love this game, but there is this one, like, standout thing that is definitely a little annoying. It's not ruining the game for me by any stretch of the imagination. I'm so enjoying myself. But, yeah, that's my complex diatribe on how I'm feeling about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth thus far.
If you did have to give a score right now to 5, and obviously that's preliminary, and it's not like the score's going to some arbiter anyhow. So
Yeah.
where are you landing right now, you think?
Between a 1 and a 5?
Yeah, 4 out of a 5-star system.
Yeah, I would say like 4.75.
Sure. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean that when you say it's like when it's something so nostalgic, it kind of lives in this other zone for you, which is like how I feel about a lot of the old like Star Wars movies, where it's like I don't even think about them critically. Like that's not what they're there for me for. So I know exactly what you mean. And having something new presented to you that you now are like an adult and engaging with it in a different way, that could be a little bit off-putting sometimes or confusing. But it sounds like you're having a great time. Lucy James, how are you finding your time?
Okay, so also to preface with my history, never played the original, played remake back in 2020. Also Kingdom Hearts fan, which I think helps because sometimes the
Seems like it might
writing
help
is
here.
yeah, the writing kind of goes a little weird and like kind of really wants you to be. I think if you suspend the fact that sometimes things just don't make sense or aren't explained perfectly, there is also a complete joke that Square is saying that each game is standalone. That is a lie. That is a lie.
Not this one,
But
at
it's
least.
not
that
called
is a
Final Fantasy VII Remake
bold-faced
Part 2.
lie.
What are you talking about?
No.
Double checked. I even went on the website and still says it's a lie. So that's my background
No.
of it. I'm really enjoying it, despite the fact that I think some of it is very messy and I haven't got to the end yet. And I know a lot of people have said that the ending does get very, very messy. We're not obviously going to spoil any of that, but like there are some parts where the open world stuff I really love. I think the combat is absolutely fantastic and it is probably my favorite combat system. That's a big bold claim. I will come back and reevaluate that, but I think it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Performances, music, all great. I also think that it's done a really incredible job of like actually making me care more about these characters. But I will say pacing wise, it's tricky. It kind of has that. It has that problem that a lot of big open world games have, where it's like, hey, there is a world-ending thing that we have to do, but wouldn't it be cool if we, went up some towers or find some stuff? And then, so it kind of suffers from that a little bit. Also, some of the missions are definitely padded, I think. There is a great side mission with some chickens, though, which I would love to talk about. Overall, I'm really enjoying it. I do not know how on earth I could put a score on it because it is such a. I don't know. You'll hear as we talk about it. It is such a wild thing.
Mike, Tam, I'm going to come back around to you. I think I'm going to use you to jump off into something else. So let's go to Mike first. Mike, how are you finding it? You actually reviewed this game. You did stay up to beat it last night and finalized your review. I think you said at 6:30 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
First of all, how are you feeling? And second, how do you find the game?
Got a bit of sleep, so that's nice. I am in the completely adore side of things. I am super thrilled with this game. I didn't think we would ever get a single player Final Fantasy game like this again. I think that trying to make a single player Final Fantasy basically since the PS2 era, and even kind of then, it has meant a lot of compromises because they still want to keep up that ridiculously high production value, but then other things kind of need to get cut. Like, well, you're only going to play as one character, or we didn't really finish the final act, or there's not going to be many side activities, or it's not like, this big world to explore. This game has all that stuff and is bigger even than those classic games. My final runtime was like 70 hours, and that was doing for a while everything because I loved all of it, all of the side missions, all of the mini games, all the open world stuff. I only stopped and beelined it when it was like 2 days ago. And I was like, I gotta beat this game. No more sleeper side activities for me. And even then I was kind of mad at myself, like, but I kind of want to play more Queen's Blood, actually. So yeah, I am definitely on the 5 out of 5. Beyond my expectations. Absolutely love this game.
All right. Sean and Tam, I know you guys have pretty similar feelings about the way the game wrapped up. Again, we can't talk specifics. We can't talk spoilers, but I think people are going to be very curious to hear the gripes because I think when I see a review score like Metacritic, 93, 94, it's in that range. And then I do the thing. I go look for like some of the lower reviews. The lower reviews here are still very high scores. It doesn't have anything below an 80 as far as I saw on Metacritic or an 8 out of 10 or whatever. And so it's like, okay, so what are the gripes? I guess you guys want to talk about how you feel. Sean, you can go first, and then maybe we can start getting into some of those gripes just so we can get them out of the way and kind of get back to gushing about some of this stuff. Sean,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I promised people the Jan spiel, and I'm going to give the shortest version of that I can because I think it's important to contextualize my feelings like Emma did. The difference, our stories are pretty similar, but mine is I was 11 when compilation of Final Fantasy VII was happening. So I was introduced to the world. It's only
Hashtag
I guess that
old.
is, yeah. I'm not gonna say what the
Dirge of
difference is there.
Cerberus babies. Let's go.
Yeah, Advent Children, Crisis Core, unfortunately, Dirge of Cerberus. None of that stuff is particularly great, by the way. I don't think it is. But seeing the world realized in that way and the characters, that's what I fell in love with. And so I went back to the original game on the PS1. I was like, oh, this really is an early PS1 RPG. Okay. And so I kind of put it down and absorbed the story through other sources. It wasn't really until like the HD release on PS4 in 2014 or whatever, where I really put time into it and did a full complete playthrough myself. And that's where I fell in love with it, and the systems and the characters, the world, everything. And so that leads us to Remake coming out in 2020. And that is one of my favorite games of all time because it is the realization of what I pictured Midgar in my head as a kid. It is what I always wanted that world to be, the characters to be. I thought that game has its issues, but what it executes on in terms of bringing that world to life is perfect. And so that brings us to Rebirth here now. And that means that I'm kind of two minds here. My expectations were going to be really high, maybe unreasonably high going into this. And when I think of the game, it's hard for me to separate how I feel about it as a video game and how I feel about it as the second part of the Remake trilogy. And I think I almost have to talk about it separately because I think as a video game, it does what Remake does. It perfectly realizes this world. I was even better than I think I was expecting. And we get things like we've mentioned the mini games. There's a lot of them, but they are very good when they hit. There's some of the sequences are just some of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed in a video game, and just had me crying with laughter, crying with sorrow. My emotions were all over the place. They came for me like they came for Emma. They're just trying to destroy us FF7 fans. It's amazing. I'm not a huge open world guy, and I thought that the open world stuff is really good too. Like there's a good loop there that keeps you going, even if it gets a little long in the tooth sometimes, and even if some of the stuff in the middle is a bit drawn out, I think is generally well done. My issues with the game mostly come down to the story elements that are new to it. A lot of the Remake trilogy specific stuff I think is handled poorly, and it feels a little cathartic to say out loud, but I'm just gonna say it. I think they messed up with the ending. I think they mangled it, and we're not good. Again, we're not going to talk specifics of what happens, and please don't misconstrue our words here. We're going to say what we say exactly as we mean to say them.
And just to be clear, like, do you think the ending is what most people think is happening? Like,
I'm not going to say anything, Jeff. I'm not going to say anything about that.
Yep. Nope. All right. Fair enough.
I'm just going to say I don't like that. And so it sort of puts a damper on my feelings of the game as a whole. But I think that everything else that is there is fantastic. And if we are doing scores and everything like that, I put in about 53 hours that was doing mostly mainline stuff with some side questing. I basically only side quested to get chocobos and points with a certain character in the relationship stuff. And I think like on a 10-point scale or, stars with half points, I would give it like a 9 out of 10 is where I'm feeling right now.
Tam, how about you?
You can visit GameSpot.com to read my full review, or go to YouTube.com/GameSpot.
The link is there at the top of the chat, everybody, if you actually want to go over there.
Yeah, so the history part of it is Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games of all time. The Final Fantasy franchise is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I spent most of my childhood and teenage years obsessively playing and replaying them, so I know them fairly well. And that extends to pretty much all of Square Enix's major RPGs. Like I love all the Kingdom Hearts games, and I reviewed while I've been at GameSpot. 3 is the only one that came out, and I reviewed that. And I have a lot of tolerance for the weird things that Square Enix's RPGs do. And when Remake came out, I gave it a 10 out of 10, which I don't give very many games 10 out of 10s. They have to be significant. They have to be significant to me or to the kind of like overall industry in terms of what they bring to the table. People have disagreed with some of my 10 out of 10s. They disagreed. I mean, they always disagree with my 10 out of 10s. They've disagreed when I gave Final Fantasy a 10 out of 10. They've disagreed when I gave Elden Ring a 10 out of 10. They disagreed when I gave Deathloop a 10 out of 10. But I don't give a shit what anyone thinks. This is how I feel. I really love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it's a phenomenal game. Mechanically speaking, it is such a smartly designed and, more importantly, iterated game. It does some really interesting, really astute and sharp things with how narrative and themes are used to reinforce gameplay and vice versa. And I think I said this in my review, but I think one of the most kind of unique and remarkable things about it is it takes the open world Ubisoft formula that is so boring and so tired, and everyone is kind of like Pavlovian conditioned to hate at this point, and it makes it meaningful by tying it intrinsically to the nature of the story and the overall task that you're embarking on. That is to say, this is a game that needs you. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a game that showed you why Shinra needs to be brought down, because people are suffering, and you got to speak to the people. This is a game that needs to show you, that needed to tell you, why does Shinra need to be brought down for the sake of the entire world? And the way it does that is it takes these menial tasks and makes you engage with them in a way that shows you why the planet is important and what it means to individual characters. And because of that, it renders these quite plain side quests and side activities with way more emotional and narrative heft than they or probably deserve, and probably most people would think that they're capable of on paper. And I think that's like, I described it as a stroke of genius, and it is incredible. And I never got tired of it, because the way they do it is like they make every system just bump shoulders with another system. So you never feel like you're doing something empty. If you do a boring side quest, it raises a level of your party, your character, gives you access to more information that Chadley is going to use to develop materia that will give you more abilities. And it's a cyclical, sticky kind of system that is close to perfection. Like, it is amazing. And then the character stuff is incredible as well. Like, they did what they did in Remake, and they made those characters important, but more on in Remake it was quite surface level. In this one, it's like, oh, you understand why they are the way they are. You get Barrett being the boisterous kind of like leader, but then you see him as the complete opposite of that character, and the game shows you why. And it's like really interesting. You get like Tifa's kind of trauma brought out, but it's never done in a way where it completely compromises her as a character. I mean, like, I'm not the right person to speak about how it presents women, but from my outside perspective, the thing I loved about it is, like, I have this image of Tifa where she's extremely strong and she's extremely assured of herself, especially through Remake. And this game, I think, I mean, I'm willing to accept that it's not the case because I don't have the proper perspective, but I think that they explore a trauma that she has without making her feel weak. And I really, really love that. There are definitely moments where she shows emotion and she breaks down, and you can tell that she doesn't have that confidence in herself that we perhaps have in her. But ultimately, it always ends in a way, or like she always finds that strength. And it's the same for every character. They kind of break down, but rebuild themselves up again. And it's fantastic. As Sean said, the issue I have with it is, one, the pacing. This is Lucy, you mentioned this, but like the pacing's not good. And it's because, I said it in my review, it's too much like the original. Final Fantasy and many games of that era, like speak to people who make games and they'll tell you this. There's a lot of games, especially Japanese games, where the gameplay dictates the story. Like, you have an idea for a gameplay, you have this mechanic, and then the story bends to fit that mechanic. And Final Fantasy VII very much was a kind of like a game that did that. The whole Gold Saucer bit, it was made a part of the story, but it was not, even back then it felt like superfluous, but we just didn't care back then because that's what stories were, that's what games were. But we were just like, okay, cool, I'll play this, and they made it work in the story. We are way more sophisticated with storytelling in video games now. So when you're in the middle of a save the world kind of scenario, and like the momentum has built up, and then you have an extended section of mini games that are kind of that are being justified as a story, it doesn't work and it disrupts it. I love mini games, but the problem here is they force you to do it, and that breaks the pace up, which I think is a major issue. And it does it back to back with 3 separate locations. in one big stretch. I think it's like 10 hours, which is like rough, or probably less than that, like 5 hours. It felt so long. And then the final issue for me was the way it ends. Again, not going to talk about what happens, but I will say what I said in my review. I like what they're going for. I understand what they're going for. I think the delivery of it was a complete mess. And again, I love Kingdom Hearts. Even I was like, what is going on? I had to sit down and think about what was happening, piece the bits together. And then when I was done, I was like, okay, I get it, but I don't know if a lot of other people will get it. Like, it is messy, is what it is. Having said that, I finished the game. I spent 18 hours in there. I'm playing it every night because Helldivers doesn't work. And you know what? I love it. Like I said in my review, that stuff is not enough for me to completely for it to completely ruin my experience.
Yeah.
And that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10, which means great. It's a great game.
Yeah.
That is, I think, reading a lot of the reviews this morning, that is definitely the sense I got, that it's like even the people that ended up feeling similar to you, Tam, everyone agreed that they are not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, and like the majority of the game where they were unabashedly loving it is definitely all still there and all still easy to enjoy. I wonder if you guys feel like it's one of the struggles here is that, in the time since Final Fantasy VII has come out, the game has sort of been turned into sort of like this holy object, Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. And so when they go back to try to recreate it, they kind of, everything becomes holy and you kind of can't cut in everything. And if you're going to do anything with it, you got to make it bigger and more in depth. And does that contribute to this pacing issue or to any issues in anyone's opinion?
I think I think a good example of what Tam is talking about, like in the original Final Fantasy VII, when you get to Junon, there's this sequence where you dress up as a soldier and you have to do like a drill march, and it's this famous mini game. And like the way they try to justify that in the story here is pretty much complete nonsense. It's like straight up a bad idea, actually, what they're doing. Their plan even works, and it's a very bad plan. Then they're like, oh no, the plan worked, basically. So I get that, but that, to me, that mini game in that whole sequence was so ridiculous, silly, endearing, entertaining, and just so wild that, like, again, I get that. Like, oh yeah, is this really serving the story? Is this like too goofy? But ultimately, I was like, nah, I don't care. I am like actually straight up laughing and smiling at an idiot at the ridiculousness of this. Like at one point, you have to like summon the people in your troop, and you have to like look through the city to get them. And then they like start marching around as you get more of them. And they're following you around this town, like all of the marching. If you go inside a store and come back out, the leader will be like, hope you found what you were looking for, sir. Then everybody else will like, us too, sir. Like there is like a dragon levels of goofiness in this game. Yes. Like this game will get incredibly goofy and it can be so surprisingly funny. Now, sometimes that can mess with the pacing and the tone of the story, because you'll have moments like, oh no, a mass shooting happened, and now there's a big muscle man in a diaper standing next to the corpses, and isn't he kind of a funny character? It's like, yeah, right, you'll have that problem sometimes. But
a problem? That doesn't sound like a problem.
Exactly. It's like, I even think like, I know that this is like not ideal. And yet, I don't know, I'm just kind of all aboard on it. But, part of it is all these mini games. I really did like almost all of them, and I really missed kind of the glut of mini games that used to just be given with Final Fantasy. I mean, that was so much of Final Fantasy VII's original identity. It's something that the series definitely kept up in the PS1 era. It's something that we lost, right? Like there aren't a lot of mini games in Final Fantasy 16. Really, there's a few in 15. So I was kind of glad that they went nuts with it. Even Remake didn't have that many. So I was kind of glad that there was, it was almost like they did have a mission statement of there's going to be more mini games than you've ever seen. Buckle up.
Can we talk about Queen's Blood, please?
Yeah, that was my question. So, someone explain Queen's Blood to me,
better than Triple Triad even. Didn't think it was possible. I think it's better than Triple Triad.
So
it's unbelievably good.
Here's a thing. Oh my gosh. Why am I completely blanking on the not Nomura director? I literally went to dinner with him. Hamaguchi-san. So
Yeah.
Hamaguchi-san has been very open about the fact that he loves The Witcher 3.
Mhm.
So this is like Gwent level good card game. It is so much fun. So basically, you get introduced to it almost immediately as soon as you're like in the present timeline once you get out of that flashback. And it is one thing that weirdly enough, you are not actually forced to play all that often, whereas like a lot of other mini games, there's a lot of you being forced to play it. Like with Queen's Blood, basically they go, okay, here's an intro to the game, and then you're kind of on your own to do with it what you want. But like shops around town sell booster packs, so there's a deck building aspect to it. You win cards off of people when you're playing against them. There's a whole Queen's Blood tournament that you don't actually have to participate in, but I participated in the entire thing and won, obviously. It's just like the deck building for me is so much fun because there's so many different sort of like strategies in terms of how you can play it. You're basically looking to get board dominance with your own color and to like block your opponent from stealing spaces from you. And then different cards have different values in terms of like how many pawns you have to have on them in order to play it. And then different cards have different abilities. I mean, you can even make the choice to like eliminate some of your own cards and reclaim those spaces to play other cards. It's, oh my God, it's so much fun.
Yeah, to be clear, what it is it's a 3 vertical by, I believe, 6 horizontal playing field.
Yes.
And you start off with your side. You have a pawn on each space. That allows you to place a card that has a cost of 1 pawn. And when you put it on there, the cards are all unique, and you will claim other spots around it. And when you claim a spot, you put pawns on it, which means that like if there's 1 pawn on it, you'll place an additional pawn. If there's no pawns on it, you'll place 1 pawn. And from there, that plays into the cost of, well, okay, I can either expand outward in the battlefield into my opponent's area and put 1 pawn, 1 pawn, 1 pawn, and keep playing weak cards, or I can power up the same spots over and over. And that way I can play stronger cards. And it's really appealing to me because it combines board games and card games. It's just insanely fun. Emma say you don't really have to touch it. There's one segment in the game where you are required to play high level matches of it. That felt weird.
Wait,
felt
was that the casino?
You're allowed.
No, you can actually skip that, which is really, really weird.
You can. Okay.
Yeah, in that section, it doesn't make clear that you have options and it funnels you towards that, but you don't have to.
So I did one of the things, thought that was all I needed, and was told I needed to do more. So I assumed it was required.
You have to do 3, I believe, but there's
you would have to do 2 out of 3 then, because
you can forfeit at any time. But you'd have to do the
but anyways, mostly it's a side thing that sort of gets out of your way, and it is just a fun thing to do in the world. I did, before we get too far away from it, I did want to mention what brought us here, which is like the mini games and the pacing and everything like that, and what Final Fantasy VII is and why all that is in here, because that's why the mini games are abundant. That's Final Fantasy VII. Those are just littered throughout the original game, and it goes at what you were saying, Jeff, is 7 almost like too sacred in a way where they can't strip anything out to account for modern gameplay sensibilities and everything like that. I think that's kind of a problem. It's a problem that people had with Remake, and I think they knew that going into Rebirth, is that, okay, if we change too much, if we strip out too much to adjust for pacing or anything like that, some of these hardcore fans are going to be pissed at us. And so I think that ultimately does mean that some of the segments are worse for it, because it means that they go on too long, or that some things that we could have done without. There's so much where like Costa del Sol is 5 minutes in the original game, is a place you visit and that's it. In this game, it's like a chapter or 2, I forget, but you spend a lot of time there. And but
the payoff that you're there to get is 5 minutes. It remains that 5 minutes.
Yeah, but those 5 minutes is Tifa in a bikini. So
I mean, like that's what happens in the lead up to it. Like you kind of
you do all those mini games and stuff to get those companion tickets, and then everyone changes into the beach.
You will never catch me complaining about Tifa in a bikini.
You will never catch me complaining about Tifa in this game.
But like it is very obvious once you reach there that the narrative weight and the forward momentum is in this moment right at the end, and everything up until that point was just a series of hoops that you had to jump through
Yeah.
for no real reason. They kind of like carrot on the stick, then like wave your hand in another direction with Tifa and the gang being in bikinis. But
I
like
know.
ultimately at the end, you're like,
But
that was a lot of waste of time.
The way they sold me on that though was when you go on this, and again, you have to play so many mini games, and it's so frustrating. One of the mini games in Costa del Sol, I just loathe with my entire being. However, I will say that they sold it as Aerith and Tifa were on a date, and so I was 100% in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say about those mini games, and like some of the sections where it definitely doesn't feel as cohesive, but you do get the positive of like taking the gang out, and it's like you'll be like Tifa and Aerith going out together, or Barrett and Red going out together, and like I love the way that they do that, because Cloud is great, but I definitely want to understand. I want to see more of the interpersonal relationships between the rest of the team rather than Cloud and everyone else. So I really like that part of it.
Yeah.
It does make me think about like to put it in the way like both Sean and Mike have, where like, oh, they're being very they're honoring what the game used to be, and that could sometimes be a problem. But it also seems like an opportunity where it's like, hey, we don't get to make Final Fantasy games like this very often anymore. When we are making a new one,
and
we're worried about.
That's
yeah,
part
please.
of why this game is 3 parts, because
yes,
people were freaking out about that when it was announced that would be episodic, as they originally called it. Now we know, no, it's 3. It's not independent games. Like, let's be real here. But it's 3 parts of a trilogy. It is Star Wars. Like these, sure, you can do one of these things by itself. I don't know why you would. I will say they have a weirdly good catch-up video at the beginning of this that I wasn't expecting. I was like, oh, that actually does summarize the story of Remake pretty well. But like, you can't make the vision of Final Fantasy VII with modern sensibilities and have it be as big and grand as you would think with that PS1 game without splitting it up into these chunks. And even if I do think it goes long, I think it needed to be in these 3 parts so that they could properly delve into all these stories of the characters, like make the world as big as you would want it to be, and all of that.
It's the best part of kind of it could be, you could see it as stretching out, but expanding it is how many more character moments we get and how much more character development. I mean, characters like Yuffie in the original Final Fantasy VII was an optional character. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, she has basically no impact in that story, right? She is just kind of a party member who fights and will maybe get a line of dialogue here or there. Here, there's a ton going on. She's got this whole arc. They made Cait Sith an interesting character in this game. Mm-hmm. Cait Sith didn't do jack in the original Final Fantasy VII, really. And each character also gets like tons of moments to shine, at least one moment where you're actively controlling them, all sorts of story beats, and not just like moments where they're interacting with Cloud, but interacting with the other party members. You begin to sense a lot of relationships developing. I think that's one of the things I do like about this as opposed to remake. And I liked that smaller scale of remake where often, hey, there's only a few playable characters, and a lot of times it's just going to be even 1 and 2 of you. Here, it does again feel like that classic RPG. You have this whole party of adventurers, and it does feel like a party. Like in a lot of times the open world, even if it isn't your 3 characters, your friends will still kind of be there shooting off pop shots and things like that. So I just love that sense of, okay, yeah, I really do get to make a party here, but there's still tons of reasons and opportunities to learn every character and to play with all of them and to really grow to love them.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Because I can't stand Yuffie. I know I'm going to get so much.
She can be a lot. She's definitely the comedic relief. Yes.
She's the most one-dimensional out of all of them. The only thing she likes is materia, and she gets motion sickness.
Yes.
Does that change? Does anything meaningful happen with Yuffie? Because she's killing me.
Okay.
Her defining characteristics in the original game, to be fair.
And I have a lot of friends whose one characteristic is they get motion sickness. So
that's me.
That's me. Yeah.
So, Lucy, you haven't played the original FF7?
That's the thing. So I feel like the whole of this conversation is you guys have all played the original FF7, and I genuinely feel coming into Rebirth, less remake, but coming into Rebirth, I feel like I'm on a back foot because I do not have that connection
That's
to the
fair.
original game.
Specifically with Yuffie, she becomes extremely plot relevant in what will be the third part of this trilogy.
Yeah.
The way they have formatted it is like there's a core group of characters that they explore, and then towards the end of that game, there's like a secondary group of characters that they tease they're going to explore. And in remake, it was Red and Kate, where they just pop up for a second. Yuffie is more prevalent, but she got some time in intermission. Her moment where it's like, oh, there's more here, happens very late into Rebirth. She's going to be a big part of the next game, as will other characters that are like just more in the periphery for now. So she is undoubtedly annoying, but she does become interesting much later, and also mechanically she's one of the most fun.
I was gonna say, and she is the most fun character.
She's so much fun.
She was like my main.
So fun to play.
She's so strong.
I wanted to play her over Cloud most of the time.
Right.
Exploiting weaknesses is so cool.
Every time you're in a combat simulator and you get to choose your team, I always do the girls. Like the three women are far and away the best team, in my opinion. The Red's pretty fun to play too, I have to say. Like once I figured out some stuff with Red, I was like, this is kind of fun.
That speaks to how good this system is, because I think maybe we all have slightly different characters I like too. Like I really like playing as Barrett. I like the active reload in an action RPG. That was a cool thing that they did.
That was great in the original, how each character felt unique and was fun to play. And there's way more characters here, and that still carries on. Each character is a ton of fun to play. I mean, this is the best battle system in a action RPG or RPG is probably ever had. It was true in remake, and there's some expansions here, like the team attacks and whatnot. Nothing like earth-shattering. It is mostly just that battle system still, but God, I love that battle system.
It's so fun.
So I think like what we're getting at overall here is like with the mini games, with exploring the characters, exploring the story, expanding on everything, maybe having too much of it at some points, is the game is maybe a little bit indulgent or self-indulgent because it's the one game that maybe Square Enix feels they can get away with that. Like Final Fantasy XVII is not going to look anything like this because it does have to abide by those modern sensibilities. So like, well, we can get away with it here, and a lot of the fans are going to want a lot of this stuff. Like, Tam, we know this. We write reviews for games, and the review is going to kind of come and go a little bit. And then 2, 3, 5 years from now, there's going to be the hardcore, diehard fans who are going to ignore all of this conversation, and they're going to have completely different feelings that have nothing to do with how people felt on day one. But it's like, if you're trying to like give people advice about going in, how you might feel about it, it's like, that's still important. But I think what this game is, it's like, it can only be what it is because it is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I'm curious about the open world. You guys seem universally to think it's pretty good or even great. Mike, you've played a lot of like games that you would describe as map games. Is this one of those? What is the open world here?
It kind of is, yeah. Like there are towers, and you activate them, and then like map icons will show up on your screen. It's more like Sonic Frontiers open zone, right? Although
Tam used that term in his review, I was like, somewhere Mike just lit up.
That's a man of culture there. Well done, Tam. But it's like all these zones are kind of centered around one of the iconic Final Fantasy VII locations. Some will have a couple of them. But then between these sort of story locations or cities, there is a larger map. And that's where you're going to do things like, find towers or go here and fight these enemies, but make sure that you stagger them properly. Or, hey, look, it's Moogle houses. There's a mini game there. And then some of them start like longer quest chains that are really wacky and a ton of fun. Maybe feature a beloved character that I don't want to spoil, but oh my God, is he so good in this? And the mini games you encounter here are wild. Like one of them is a long sequence where you are just playing a Clash of Clans or Clash Royale, whichever one of those. I guess put one of those in here. So yeah, it's like, it is kind of that map barf thing, but one, it's all fun. And two, mostly like 90% optional, probably more than that. Think of this as kind of what you do instead of grinding in the original. Like in the last game, if you wanted to maybe like, oh, I gotta like beef up a bit, you just go walk around and get in random battles. Here, it's like, I just kind of want to take it easy or relax or get stronger. Then go knock out some map icons.
So you're getting XP?
You're getting XP, you're getting items, you're deepening bonds with characters, it's an incredible loop. You're unlocking stuff so you can make more materia with the Chadley. It's tons of rewards.
And I will say that, like, similarly to games like, say, Witcher 3, when you do side quests, even if they don't involve fighting, they do sometimes or often result in you gaining party experience. Like, I just completed a side quest that had no fighting whatsoever, and I had characters level up.
Same.
So it's very the side quests honestly are pretty rewarding in terms of, I just completed a quest line in an area that I was not expecting to dig so heavily into some character stuff. And it was devastating. It was beautiful. And I'm with you, Sean. I don't love open world games. I like to have a little direction, but I think that for me, where this really works is, again, the fact that the open world and the way that you interact with it is so baked into the actual storytelling in the game. And so that, to me, is why it's really successful.
Yeah, and I think, not to evoke its name unnecessarily, but Tears of the Kingdom, there's a little bit of that here where it's not a map game in the sense that here's a crap ton of icons, go take them off the map. It's kind of the reverse of, no, you add icons to the map and you find things to do. And it is optional to the point that you don't have to do any of it, essentially. In my playthrough, I did any of the stuff that got me chocobos for traversal, and that's literally it. Unless something was right in front of me, I heard like, oh yeah, there's the life spring or whatever. I'll just walk over here, grab it, and walk out. Otherwise, literally did zero open world stuff, and I loved it. And now I'm excited to go back and keep playing because there's all this stuff that I didn't do that I can keep going with these mechanics and everything.
You didn't do the summoning stuff?
Nope. Because I just didn't. I know
fun.
summons are
leave an area without getting the summon.
Sean is here. He wanted to get to that end. I remember it was like, this
yes,
is about
it was the most important thing to me is I needed to see the ending of this.
Yeah.
But also, I don't love the way summons are implemented in battle because you have to spend your ATB gauges to have them do anything more meaningful than just basic attacks. So that was kind of a weak point for me in the system in Remake. It's not changed a ton in Rebirth. And so getting those summons to become easier through the open world stuff, that's how you like make the fights more manageable in Chadley's Simulator. That whole loop just never really appealed to me. That's something that I might do later on when I'm like a little higher level and I'm like, okay, I can do this a little more easily, and it's kind of just fun stuff for me to see. But yeah, all this stuff I just didn't even do it, and now it's just, it's just icing. It's just all this stuff I can go back and have fun with afterwards.
We have some questions. Before we get to that, though, I wonder if there's things that you guys have been bursting to talk about, and now's your opportunity. Is there something you really wanted to call out?
I just wanted to, a while ago, Tam started off a lot of this discussion discussing the characterization of the women in this game, particularly Tifa and Aerith. And I just want to echo that has always been one of the things that I've loved about Final Fantasy VII and about a lot of Final Fantasy games in general, is that they often have these very complex women characters who are strong characters without having to sacrifice the things that make them feminine. That's something that, we see with Tifa in particular, where, you look at her in combat and obviously like she's stupid fun to play in combat. She's, as much as I love Yuffie, Tifa's still my favorite to have on my party. But, I think the thing that really appealed to me about that character as a young woman was the fact that she did present this front of being very capable, but also, and very nurturing, which again is all very feminine, but like having those insecurities that don't undermine her, but are realistic and relatable. And another thing that I and I loved it in Remake, and I love it even more in Rebirth because they go even deeper into it, is the friendship between Tifa and Aerith is one of the standout points for me for this game, is the two of them and the way that they support one another. And the way that Tifa shares everything with Aerith, like it was not made clear in the original game whether she did or not, but if you've played the original game, you know what's going on with a certain individual. And Tifa shares that with Aerith, like, immediately in this game. And just the two of them and the way that they are trying to support one another through their individual journeys. It's just, it's so well done. I just love to see these really wonderful friendships between women portrayed in a video game, and women who are really like women. And I've always loved the dichotomy between Tifa being the one who's like really tough and capable in battle, and she can run up a mountain no problem, yet she's the one who's a little insecure. And Aerith is the one who's very flirty and forward, and yet she is the one that would appear to be more delicate. So yeah, I really, and oh my God, Barrett's characterization in this, I just love, like, the way that we really see this soft and caring side of him. Yeah, again, everything with the characterization in this game is just fantastic. And yeah, that to me is just really, really one of the strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what a lot of people come to the genre for. That's what I'm finding.
Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time in Like a Dragon, and I'm like realizing, oh, this is actually why people always like these games. They just like to see friends being friends, and I think the people responsible for the genre are also realizing that more and more with every game, and about how important that is to the people who play these games, and seeing the relationship that then the players build with those characters, and so taking that stuff seriously and executing on it. It's like that. You saying all that has me more excited to play this game.
RPG found family, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
think. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say, like, that's kind of one of the things that you need to kind of accept to when appraising or even experiencing the tonal shifts, the tone itself and the writing itself. People will just describe it as very anime, but anime writing is incredibly powerful for specific reasons, because they kind of often forgo subtlety to evoke the most powerful version of the emotion that they can.
Yes.
That's what the shonen genre is. The reason Goku is screaming so loudly isn't because they're trying to show you he's powerful. It's because they want you to feel that power and feel like it's being evoked in the same way in you as it is him. So when Barrett is like making these grand gestures about bringing down Shinra, or how they changed his life, and it seems borderline comical, it's not because it's poorly written or delivered. That was the intent. The intent was to kind of push past the natural defense mechanisms people have with modern media around being subtle and being sophisticated, to invite and accept you to be as like over the top with it and as enthusiastic as you want to be, and not hold back that passion at all. And that kind of like, making these caricatures happen so that they are the message isn't lost is a big part of the way the Final Fantasy works, that anime writing works, and the way this game works. They're not trying to be subtle because they don't want you to miss what they're trying to tell you. They want you to walk away feeling good about it. So when you see like Tifa and Aerith, together, and like they are like, they're two friends who come together closer because they're worried about their third friend in a lot of ways. So when they're showing that emotion of like being worried, and it's like, calm down, ladies. It's like, no, because they want you to know how it feels. And when Cloud is being melodramatic, they want you to feel how he feels in that moment. And sometimes subtlety doesn't work because, sometimes subtlety won't get you to the level of emotional reaction that they want. And that's what Yakuza does as well. It's so melodramatic. People are grown men crying all the time. And it's just like, they want the people playing to be on that verge of tears, to feel that emotion. So you don't forget the game. You don't forget the moment. You don't forget the character. And that's why people are so obsessed with anime. They're so obsessed with Final Fantasy characters. It's like there's no filter. There's no kind of roadblock to the way people express emotions in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a whole class group of people in the world that have their emotions right there under the surface all the time, and to experience a medium and genres of storytelling that are very similar, it is very like it calms them and say, oh, there's something out there that is for me, and it expresses emotions in the same way I do. Sean, you were going to say something.
Yeah, two things. One quick thing I wanted to get in there is that while I was playing this game and we were talking about the relationships and the characters and everything like that, and I was playing, I was like, man, people not super familiar with the original game are going to see the relationship system and think, oh, they added Persona's relationship system, and that's going to drive me insane because I'm like, it's there in the original, it's just not visible in any way, and it's there for a reason, and it's there for a reason in this one as well. But it's what made me fall in love with the original. It's why I'm in love with this one, is the characters and their relationships and the way that they interact. And sort of springboarding off of Tam said, though, like with it being a quote unquote anime, with it being over the top in general a lot of the time, the one thing that I did want to talk about coming in is that I was like, I just want to get this out there. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to say what any of these things are, but I want to excite Final Fantasy VII fans, because there are moments in this game you think they're not going to do it from the original, and then they do it.
They do it.
You know, the Hell House? Remember the Hell House? We all thought they're not going to do the Hell House in Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's such a stupid idea. Why would they put it? And then the way they pulled it off was incredible. There are moments like that literally throughout this game. Yes, there's. Cool. All I'll say is, hey, you know the boat? Something really good happens on that boat, man. And it's just,
I'm literally by one Jan that something happens on the boat that is specific for him, and he's very excited about it.
I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but if we might not talk about the same thing. It is literally my favorite thing I've ever seen in a video game, because it's just so ridiculous. It's so well done, and I love it. And there's other stuff too, like I won't say too much, but Emma, there's a scene you haven't gotten to that is not in the original. And it will destroy you like it destroyed me.
Sorry. Like, literally, I was talking with somebody else who I knew was playing the game. Obviously, none of us could publicly discuss that we were. And I was like, I had texted her and I was like, oh my God, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is trying to kill me. And she was like, girl, have you played Chapter 9 yet? And I was like, no. And she's like, let me know when you finish Chapter 9. And she was not wrong.
Yeah, that keeps going, and it's just incredible every single time. I was just in tears, sobbing at one of those scenes. I was like,
there is so much that I want to talk about, but that we cannot talk about yet.
Yeah, we'll come back around.
Spoiler cast in the future.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Because there's stuff we need to talk about at some point.
Hey, the music. And one of the all-time great soundtracks. And yeah, look, it's based off of another soundtrack, so it's a lot of arrangements. But oh my God. And just the amount of music. Again, like so much of this game is just, I can't believe just how much of all of it there is. There is so much music. So much of it hits incredibly hard. There's still a ton of new music that's so good. When you get into that open world for the first time, it's playing the classic Final Fantasy VII theme. Then you get into your first like open world fight, and that just seamlessly transitions into a battle version of that song. It was chills. It's so and every zone has like that, right? Like each zone has its own battle song based off of like that zone's theme, which is usually a rendition of the Final Fantasy VII theme. Just insanely good music in this game. I could just listen to this for the rest of the year. That would be all the music I would need.
Dude, I said this on Twitter earlier today. If y'all can recall the climb of Mount Corel, I got to Mount Corel at like 2 a.m. and I was like starting to nod off a little bit. And then the music there kicks in and it just slapped me awake. I was like, why is Mount Corel such a banger? That makes no sense, but I love it. Hell yeah. Soundtrack is absolutely
Is your audio mixing buggered though?
Yes, you need to turn down everything except voices. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I always do that immediately. So I was like, what do you mean the audio mixing is bad?
Unless they change it.
Started.
Unless they change it before release. I recommend, I think, voices at 10, sound effects at 8, and everything else at 7. You definitely need to adjust it, unfortunately.
Every single thing on, like all their armor and weapons, you can hear the little tinkling every time the characters move, but it's so much louder than like sometimes speech. Sometimes it's very strange. But,
and there's cutscenes where incredible. I couldn't hear people talking or the music when the music starts kicking in. Like it's
much less prominent if you're wearing headphones, which is what I did. But even then, it requires a little bit of adjusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chat did have a bunch of questions. One was about the music. They said, "Are there any specific bangers that you like?" Mike, are you going to answer in the form of a song?
No, but look, Cosmo Canyon, the
Still
way they
good.
do this one,
So good.
I got my tin whistle right here. I'm coming for you. Like, oh my
Oh, you're
goodness.
threatening with an instrument. Okay, I see.
Okay. So
Is
you're
it
going to
the-
play it on the recorder
Gongaga?
for us?
Yeah, Gongaga is
Gongaga is great.
Yeah.
Oh,
They-
I
they-
love the
Yes.
Gongaga music.
Yeah.
I also
There's-
Really
loved there's a region
Jar
that
Jar?
you go to where when you do a certain quest line, it reuses the Promised Land theme from Advent Children, which is beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
they do that
awesome.
quite a lot. They take a region that they know is going to be like quite character specific or has an iconic theme, and they use the most recognizable motif as the center point for a bunch of different songs that are
Yeah.
a bunch of different genres, which is a really cool way to do it. And also they are very good at taking the tone of a side quest and creating music that specifically accentuates it. And when you're doing one of these dumb, goofy side quests that is built for laughs, they will put in a stupid sounding song that will like make that emphasize that a lot. And the soundtrack is phenomenal. It's really good.
Let's see here. Some questions. Nylox says, "Does your party start with levels, weapons, skills, and summons from Remake? How does the reset work? What is that like?"
It's a
For
feast.
remake.
It's
Start
a lot
at
of
level
everything.
15, I think.
Yeah, and you start
level
with
15, you got
summons.
some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got
it's like an
summons.
artificial start, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you're basically kind of at level 1, but they just like sort of made it reflect that the team has experience at this point.
If you have a save file, not like a completed save file, if you have a save file of 7 remake and of the intergrade, you get kind of bonus summons. So if you don't have those save files even, but you have those games or something, just like do what I did, because I actually never played intergrade. I got the cloud version, went in, did the intro, just saved and left, and then I got that summon. So
You didn't play
Dude, you're missing
intergrade?
a
I know,
massive
I
chunk
blew it.
of-
I blew it. I know.
Really?
I know.
Important stuff in the story.
really
Some
important stuff
incredible
happened.
gameplay.
I know.
Oh my God.
I blew it. I was always like, I'll get to that. I'll play it before Rebirth came out. And then I woke up one day and there was a code for Rebirth in my email. I was like, well,
I guess that explains why Yuffie surprised you so much, because
geez,
Yeah,
so
there's some
much.
stuff that she references specifically that is very important from that.
Let's refrain from using the
That's-
important word. Jetback
Yeah.
is in
No,
here to
I
tell
was
us what's
gonna
important and
say-
what's not. So
I just wanted to interject though in regards to that specifically. Yes, episode intermission plays into this directly. So again, this is going back to this idea of this being a standalone game. So Square's like, this is a standalone game, but also you need to have made sure that you played the whole first game, you also played the DLC, and you read the tie-in novel, which is extremely important.
It is so funny to see them in like the market be like completely standalone. You don't need to play the other ones. And like,
no.
sure, yeah, maybe go watch a really good YouTube video, but I'm like, you should probably
Honestly,
play
if I-
Remake.
If I could give a piece of advice to the listeners at home, if you have not read Trace of Two Pasts, read it. It's not very long, and it is wildly important.
all right, Slam Gossip says, "Is the party still locked at 3 characters?" Someone else also asked, "Are the teammates helpful when they're controlled by AI during battles?"
Yeah, and you could get, there's certain materia, like one of the more useful ones is like automatic action, which lets characters use their main action without you having to. So for example, if you put that on Barrett, he will like kind of automatically shoot out that sort of the triangle like weapon attack, things like that.
Overcharge.
It's still, I kind of like that they're only so effective because it is an incentive for you to switch around and control characters at specific moments. But yeah, it's still 3 characters is the max. But again, in certain areas, those other characters will be in the field with you, kind of shooting off some basic attacks. I aren't really doing much,
Yeah.
but it's nice to see them there.
There is a mechanic in here.
you're-
I did not.
Yeah.
I did
Backline
not
attack.
realize. Yeah,
Yeah.
backline.
Yeah.
I did not get to until I think the final battle. It was where like first show or like
Yeah,
the final
they-
segment. I was like, this tutorial message popped up, and I'm like, wait, is this? No,
The
this was
last
intended
battle?
for earlier
Right.
in the game.
That is such a flex because it only comes up if
you're in trouble.
If
yeah.
you're in
If you're in
trouble,
trouble and like somebody
I
else
never
goes
let
in and out.
anyone
We
dip
can't
into the
let
red.
this man's
Oh, I
ego.
never got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
no,
got
you
it
could-
super late, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Do I even include this in my review?" It's probably not. Like,
But yeah,
bragging about how good he is at the game.
Uh-huh.
I only
well,
know
I play
that
action
because-
games. What can I say? No, but
I only knew about it because when I went to the final media preview, I tried to just continue with the story right away, and I was ill prepared, and I got absolutely stomped by the boss.
So the mechanic, for people who are wondering, is as well as your main 3 characters, the rest of the group are like in the background. Yeah. They are like fake fighting, just to make sure that they look like they're not just watching you fight. But every now and then, if you're in a specific like dire straight situation, it will let you pick someone from that background to do an attack to help you out that actually does decent damage and get some pressure off you.
It's like a Final Gambit type of thing. It only comes into play like very rarely, and you only use it once per battle.
It's like when you could summon Mickey Mouse in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Right,
but I think
answer if it's locked to 3 characters.
So
in battle.
are only ever 3 people at a time. Yeah, but you will have like basically everyone else in a ring around the battle, like helping out. And I think that's very smart because it's always whack as hell in an RPG when it's like, we're going to bring a couple people in a battle when your team is like 10. It's like, no, anyone who is traveling with you will somehow participate in the battle, even if they're not part of the 3 that you can control.
They also make it very easy to set up party kind of loadouts, like what characters you want, and then in the field outside of battle it takes like 2 button presses to switch between the party, and they like the ones that are removed will run back and the others will come forward. And it's not, you don't have to for the most part go into menus. You can just hit X to bring up the kind of like command menu, and then press L2 I believe is, or R2, and it would flip.
It's like that's a good development in RPGs recently. They're like, you just have your whole crew. Come on.
Oh, that reminds me. Okay, so this is a huge problem I had. I don't think I was missing anything, but that reminds me of something. Materia. I thought there were going to be materia sets in here. I thought that was going to be a thing. I didn't see any way to do that. You can easily move materia between people more easily than ever, but you have to manually do it. And I was like, oh, well, I'm usually rotating I usually like rotate my materia sets. So it'd be cool if you could like select all, move to this person that you are required to play through for part of the story, and then like move all of it back. That was kind of an annoying thing. I actually spent a shocking amount of time in menus doing that. That's like the one issue.
I got to a point where I got around that by just creating like duplicate, or like getting duplicates of the materia I knew that I was going to be moving around. One of the things I do like, which I can't remember if it was in Remake, is like when you move from one weapon to another, it does its best to transfer all of that materia over.
That was not in the original. And I guess we didn't even talk about that, like the weapons and the essentially bringing back the sphere grid of Final Fantasy X is such a smarter way to do the thing that
this game is all about lady power and sphere grids. Is this Final Fantasy X-3?
Maybe
it should be.
Yes.
It's not quite the sphere grid.
It's not quite the same. But it's like
it doesn't have the freedom of this, or like the kind of depth of the sphere grid. It's that kind of like, it looks like the sphere grid, but like what you get out of it is marginal increases to various stats as well as a few abilities, but primarily the synergy stuff where you do these super moves together with another character. It's all in there. The most important stuff in there is which is completely new, is they have now created a way for everyone to do elemental spells without using MP.
Yes.
And the reason they do that, you use an ATB bar, and the reason they do that is you have to exploit weaknesses in this game. It is much harder, and the only way to get pressured or staggered is to exploit that weakness. If you're just trying to like brute force your way through it, you can get through some of them, but some of these enemies will just destroy you immediately.
It's an interesting difference.
Regular enemies in the field too, not just boss fights.
So that's the other thing that I really, really think is super smart. The way they slow down the ATB bar as well quite significantly. So it takes a really long time to get a usable ATB bar, unless you use one of the synergy moves, which is a quick move that you do by holding like R1 and pressing a designated button, which when you connect that, it gives you a quick super boost in the ATB bar. So the game is basically forcing you to rely on your teammates. And when you do, you get rewarded with it by using bigger abilities. And also you're in a better position to exploit weaknesses. It's a very smartly designed like cyclical system.
I do like in general.
The folio system?
The folio system is the sacred like thing here.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was going to say also in terms of the like combat of it all, you're definitely rewarded for cooperating with your team. And yeah, it's just like, again, that like staggering becomes so important in this game.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was that with the slower ATB charges, I know one of the things that some people had issue with in the original game was that you have to have a full ATB in order to use items. There is materia in this game that you can equip that will give you like limited item use without having to spend an ATB charge. So again, and there's also like materia accessories, so you can like have a particular materia equipped without actually having it take up a materia slot. So there's a lot of really interesting builds that you can create using materia and accessories.
Yeah, I Tam was kind of talking about how important the elemental weaknesses is. That's a change from Remake that I like. So much of pressuring people in Remake was kind of about countering and parrying. It was fun, but it did kind of make it feel like primarily an action game in a lot of ways. I like that it is more about those elemental weaknesses. And again, they give you ways of doing that, even if MP is a concern. It just makes it feel more like a kind of classic RPG to me.
We have some more questions here. Let's see. So a lot of people are asking about Chadley. Mostly, how does the game explain Chadley's godlike powers? It comes from Nylock and a few others.
Well,
What's
I
it
mean, if you
called?
played
The-
Remake, you kind of know.
What is
It's
it?
called Chadley.
The Chad combat system or something, which made me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
There's a lot of Chadley in this game.
He's
but there's
in it
also
a
like
lot.
female Chadley.
Yeah,
Right?
so Brianna.
I love her.
I was
Oh
just
my
like,
god.
I will say Chadley is so annoying.
I
He
know,
is-
but Mai is so
Cloud.
awesome.
He is-
because
He
He is
she
that.
also is constantly just like dumping on Chadley. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chadley is that friend that will phone you instead of sending you a text message.
Yes.
And
Oh,
he does it
so accurate.
repeatedly. Like he'll be like, you'll do
Yeah.
something, and he'll be like, "Hey, I noticed you did this thing. Nice work. Bye."
You want to go
I was like,
bowling?
bro,
Yeah.
Cousin,
stop.
oh shit, you stole my
Yeah.
joke, Sean.
Yeah. By the way, there's like I got fan theory here. Chadley totally has a crush on Cloud, and so the fact that he made an anime
Everyone's a crush
waifu version of himself to appeal to Cloud is just the funniest fucking thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
Probably works.
That is one thing. Like, if I had like a bigger complaint, and I probably don't, and I think it's something that would drive Jeff crazy. There is like some of that, dare I say, Red Dead Redemption 2-ness here, where like,
Ooh.
we're gonna just completely stop me so that Charlie can talk to me, or push
yeah.
this lever. Kind of taking a while to pull this lever for some reason. Or even things like, oh yeah, we're gonna shimmy across this ledge. I know we're shimmying, but boy, we sure are shimmying slowly here. There's like a bit of that. Everyone's like, everything here needs to be maybe picked up a little bit.
I'll wait for the integrated version of this when they fix all that stuff. That's when I'll play it. Winship asked about the difficulty, and specifically asked about a hard mode for like a second playthrough. But how would you guys say the difficulty is on your first playthrough? And for those of you who have beaten it, did you go to a new game plus, or did you just go back to your save file? How are you still going back and playing it now?
So you can actually, from the very jump of the game, make it more difficult for yourself if you like. There is what is called an adaptive difficulty mode, so that the enemies all level up with you. There is no set, you must be, we recommend you be this level to proceed. But I assume I have not finished the game. I don't think it's any more difficult than Remake was. I just think that the approach to combat with the new added elements, and like Mitch was talking about with the exploiting weaknesses versus, countering and punching things, that it's a slightly different approach. I found it to be challenging in a way that was engaging, but didn't make me want to rip my hair out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's going to also scale based on how much open world stuff you do and how much bonus experience you get. Because, me not doing any of the open world stuff, I was always a little bit under the level that they recommend. Like never too much, like usually about 2 levels below. And so I found the boss fights in particular, like the grunt fights are what they are. But the boss fights in general, I actually found like particularly like a good challenge. Never like too difficult. I was never beating my head against the wall, but I was like, oh, I did game over because I screwed up. Okay, you know what? Yeah, like let's run this back. I'm learning here. And so I think there's a good challenge to be had there, definitely.
I think normal mode is.
Oh, go on.
No, you go ahead, Lucy.
I was gonna say, if I ever was struggling, the fact that they make it so easy to swap between pre-set up parties made it really actually kind of fun for me, because I'd be like, my typical party is Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, and then sometimes be like, oh, what if I was doing this with Red and Aerith instead? And like I kind of enjoyed messing up, because then I would just try a different configuration. Oh, sure. And the fact that you can, like, everyone has. I really love the way you can dip between everyone, and it's just so easy in setup for you, because they're all so different to play. And I think I definitely in RPGs get to a place where I'm just like, oh, well, this is my party. I'm never swapping anyone in and out. And so I kind of liked messing up.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, real quick. Just I really want a well-balanced normal mode, and this game definitely has that. I think it was a very good balance of difficulty on normal, and it's something that some Square Enix games have struggled with. 16 on base normal was way too easy. Kingdom Hearts 3 on base normal was way too easy. So I'm glad that here it was a good challenge. You can't just like spam auto attacks. You do have to engage with all the systems. There are going to be some boss fights that are going to take you a little bit to get through. So I was really happy with the kind of difficulty balance in this.
Thanks for the raid, Kyle. We really appreciate that. Let's see. So a couple more questions. Mustache Walker says, how does Rebirth compare to Infinite Wealth if I'm hungry for more RPG with compelling story and good combat / gameplay? Mike, you were talking about this earlier.
I haven't actually played for Wealth. I've just got it through osmosis, but even when playing through, I was like, this is kind of a lot like that, isn't it? Just in terms of like, there's all this, it's very goofy. There's just a ton of side activities. You kind of have that, like, oh, look at all these wackos, and they're all friends and family. But yeah, maybe I'll leave it to somebody who's played more Infinite Wealth thing. But at least that's my base level impression is I think these two games are very similar, actually.
Let's see here. Arwool says, does it seem like they left room for DLC similar to the first game?
Yes.
You guys think so?
I mean, they can always find something to do DLC. That's how Intergrade worked. It was the intermission DLC, which told what was Yuffie doing while everyone else was off doing their thing. So
I get the feeling we're also avoiding the potential spoilers so we don't get shot by Square Enix. So I'm going to move on from that. Alistair Cat says, is there anything omitted in this from the original game that you miss? It seemed like you guys were saying, no, everything's here.
Yeah, there's more, and there's everything and then more for the most part. I'm trying to, I would have to think if there's something.
Yeah, there's one thing that I was kind of expecting based on some knowledge we had going into the game that I won't say because there's a bit of a story spoiler there, but I was expecting something minor that wasn't in here that I think will be in the third game instead, because how they've changed some of the story.
Okay, yeah, I know. Yes, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, Sean. And yeah, I think something's maybe happening out of sequence so that it can be saved for the third game. And it's kind of a location and character specific stuff. Yeah, yep. I know that's right. That was the one. That was the one that I did notice.
Arwools asks, does Red 13 dress up as a human sailor? I don't think we could talk about specifics.
Hey, I know we said Queen's Blood is optional, but maybe join that tournament on the boat.
Okay. Let's see. Cloud in a dress again. Winship wants to know. It sounds like there's plenty of opportunities for fun stuff to happen in this game. Let's see. Anything else from the chat for questions?
There are outfits, multiple outfits that you can get in Costa del Sol and maybe beyond.
Yep.
And then Lord Gron says, is the Crisis Core remake important to the story in Rebirth? I've played the original, but not the remake.
It helps.
The Crisis Core remake is identical to the. It's literally the same.
Right.
They didn't change anything.
They just updated the models, right? The character models.
Yeah,
in the world.
and the gameplay to be more similar in ways to the remake sort of approach to battle. Yeah, the battle system's more modern, but that's it. They didn't change the story at all. That being said, if you haven't played any Crisis Core in any iteration,
I think if you've played Remake, you know how Crisis Core plays into everything going forward.
But don't worry, we've got a video coming to GameSpot's YouTube explaining a little bit of that.
I don't know if you were going to get to this one, Jeff. I did see one pass by that I do want to address.
Please.
Someone asked, how's the open world jank? I will say, to evoke Tears of the Kingdom again, I don't think I encountered a single major bug in this video game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had
Like,
one crash.
Now, granted, again, I didn't do a lot of open world stuff, but just traversing around, the battling, indoors, like there's a little bit of like weird Unreal Engine stuff where it's like, oh, this collapsed item is like flickering around over there. But in terms of actual like bugs, that I would say I don't
It's clean.
I can't think of anything. It's it's very well made.
There's
Very polished.
you can make it
I had one.
crash.
Oh yeah.
If you are, there's certain setups for characters that we should get
Certain
maxed to.
builds.
Certain builds that you
Cloud
can
and
do.
Chadley kiss that the game just can't handle it.
There's like some. So what I would say is, one of the things that I would recommend people do is use the enemy ability materia as much as you can, and then go to the combat simulator and do the biological or whatever they're called intel missions there, because then you get some absolutely ridiculous abilities in there, and if you combine them with other characters properly, you can make the PS5 struggle, like really struggle. And if you keep pushing it, it will break. But I think most people won't do that. Otherwise,
speaking of the PS5, I'm curious, what did everyone play on?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Performance, baby, all the way.
Performance.
Yeah, I was graphics. I was graphics.
Yeah, I was
Tim, you
graphics.
freak.
You were graphics. No, because
I played on graphics too.
Emma,
graphics.
you freak.
No, but with performance, I found that it looks slightly blurrier.
It is blurry.
And I didn't like
they
that.
publicly
amazing on
addressed.
graphics.
They publicly addressed
the
there are some
demo.
bugs in the demo that they fixed for the demo and will be trickling down to the final release.
Yes, that's correct.
The trade-off is the performance version for me was blurry, but the graphics version, it looks so nice, but because of the way my eyes work, the moment I move the camera, it starts to hurt my eyes. My eyes have trouble tracking stuff. But that's not a game problem. That's a my eyes problem.
That's a 30 FPS thing. Like,
it's a 30 FPS. 60
Yeah.
FPS thing,
I like a locked 30 FPS over a janky performance mode. That's how I played Final Fantasy 16 as well. Like, these games are designed for that. That is the way you play them. And my recommendation is move the camera like it's an actual camera. Do not do quick jerky moments. Like adjust your sensitivity on your camera so that way when you move it, it's a smooth movement, and then you'll have a good time with the graphics, my thing. Or play on performance mode because the option is there for you, like Mike and Lucy did.
I think I did. I don't know, man.
I couldn't.
It looked good. The only bug I had is that every time Yuffie got on a chocobo, she would sing a song, but it was every single time she got on a chocobo, and that did not endear her to me.
I will say, after playing these games, I am a little bit sick of hearing, coming, I'll show you what I can do. I'll show you what I can do.
Yeah,
I would like a few more combat box. Would be
the battle sounds, the efforts and everything do tend to repeat a lot.
And it's when you're like, I micromanage battles so much where I'm switching between people constantly. So it's like times where I can just hear Eric going, coming. And I'm like, I wish Tifa was here.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, fantastic. I don't know what it is. I couldn't stand to look at the 30 FPS option. I don't know why when I'm playing like
because you're a man of culture. Yeah,
I don't know. The one thing I did have that was like a bug towards the end of the game. There's like 20 bat enemies, and I managed to kill all of them at the same time. And for some reason, it amplified the noise so that a sound came out of my speakers. I didn't know it could just get that loud without my permission. It actually hurt. Like, it was like that staggering sound. It just was like a top. And I was like, it was like Back to the Future. I was blown back.
It activated you. Yeah,
I know the exact thing happened. I know exactly what you're talking about because that happened to me too.
Okay,
and I thought I blew out my headphones.
Me
I was
too.
worried.
I was like, oh no, my poor Penny was freaked out. Like, what the hell was that?
All right. The two things before I have the one big question before we wrap things up. Dan has been playing. He really likes it. He just didn't finish it. He didn't want to come in here and talk about it before he finished it. But he really likes it. He's been playing on the PlayStation Portal a lot. He said that has worked well. Jan has been playing on Chiaki 4 Deck on Steam Deck, and that's been working very well for him. The little bit I played, that's what I did as well. It works really well with that stuff. The big question that we can only barely talk about, but I do wonder how, like, where you guys stand today. How much are you looking forward to Final Fantasy Remake 3? What are your hopes and dreams, as much as you could say them?
Oh man, I'm on board. I know, again, not talking specifically about the ending, and I get what Tam and Sean are saying about it. It didn't bother me that much. It's definitely a little bit of like, hey, yeah, there's some Kingdom Hearts sort of bullshit, just in terms of, okay, this is it's all a bit much, right? There's definitely that classic Nomura excess, right? And it gets the most excessive-y at the ending. It didn't bother me that much.
I don't want to blame Nomura for this stuff. I feel like anything bad that Square Enix does gets Nomura some shit. Like, Nomura is genuinely one of the best developers of our time. Like, yeah. And like, just because a team had like bad story making, it's not his fault. But it is. I feel like the thing that I said in my review was the delivery is not good. The idea is still super interesting. And my criticism is the delivery is bad enough that people might not see the potential of what they're doing. So I am definitely excited for the next game. And I'm excited about what they potentially are setting up. I'm not super excited by some of the decisions they made, but if they do what I think they're about to do and do it well, it could be very, very, very cool. They just need to not get in their own way, which is what they did. And also, I think they need to commit to what they want to do and how they want to tell it, instead of trying to do stuff that might placate the audience. Like, I feel like I can feel a bit of that happening constantly in Rebirth, and with the ending especially, but I just want them to be like, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to end, lean into it. And if they do that, I think it could be really cool. I'm excited to see it.
Don't Rise of Skywalker it. That's don't do that.
Can't be an option, please, God,
like,
no.
Yeah, placating the audience, as you were saying, Tam, like that is the thing that I want all creators to stay away from when working with a legacy title. Like, tell the story that you want to tell. Again, I have not gotten to the ending of this game yet. I am so curious, just based on all the feedback I've been hearing from people who have completed it. And so to me, though, again, this in some ways isn't an ending, because this is Empire Strikes Back. This is, setting us up for whatever the future is going to be. And if they leave it in a place where there is an interesting idea, even if you don't like the way it was executed, then they are still leaving it open for them to deliver on a third part.
Yeah, I think with the third and final entry in the trilogy, I'm incredibly excited for it as a video game, because if they just do what they did here and what they did in Remake, and just realizing what the finality of the Final Fantasy VII story is, seeing that with this fidelity and with these relationships that we've built up with these characters now better than ever, I'm super looking forward to that. That being said, that basically is the one problem that I have with this game, is when I got done with the game, and after I saw the ending, granted, it was way too late at night, so I needed a day to process it. But after I did that, I was like, I have lost faith in their ability to do the Remake trilogy stuff. And like Tam said, what's there, the idea is good. The idea I like, but the execution is fumbled so hard that I was just like devastated by the end. I was like, I can't believe that's what happened. And so going into this, I don't want to
interrupt, but like, is there a chance they could like clean some, in your guys' opinion, and as much as we could talk about it, clean some of that stuff up in DLC? Do you think they could retcon this in any way that would satisfy you guys?
I will say, Jeff, I don't think that's what DLC for this game would be.
No, I guess regardless of that, do you think they could do it if it was like something they would try?
And again, it's not just what is happening, it's the way it's happening. It's right. Like if we had to like create an analogy to writing, the words are confusing. That is the issue.
Sure. Okay.
And it's kind of like it kind of accentuated again, or like it's emphasized and put into a weirder position because the stuff from the beginning of the game leading up to it has a part to play. So it would have to be quite a significant overhaul of the narrative to really make it ideal. And I don't think it's worth their time to do that. I feel like they made their bed and they kind of have to just see who wants to, get on board with that and who wants. I don't think everyone's going to have an issue with it.
No, this is going to be like a remake. It's going to be divisive.
Yeah.
And I think just to close out my thought there, I think that after I sat and I thought about it for a little bit, and I thought back to, like I mentioned, a moment on a boat. And that was the moment where I literally said aloud to myself, this team gets it. They understood the assignment. They know what they're doing. And so to see them fumble at the finish line surprised me. And I think, okay, if the idea is good and it's the execution that's bad, I think that they can fix that. And I think the feedback that they receive on this game, they received feedback on Remake that they took into Rebirth. And I think that if they do listen to what reviewers are saying, what the people who play this game are saying, I think they can sort of correct the path a bit so that with 3, I do think that they can finish strong. I'm just not as confident in that as I used to be.
And I know I said I'm more on like the, hey, I was fine with it kind of side of things. I don't want, people listening to this thinking like dreading now, like, oh no, I'm playing this thing and I'm just going to get this bad ending. It's not like a Mass Effect 3 thing, I think, where that's going to be the dominant part of the conversation. I think plenty of people are going to be fine with the ending or even straight up like it. So I don't want people to go in kind of with like this sense of dread about it. It's going to be an interesting conversation. And I think, we're definitely going to see how it all plays out in 3. I think that's where I was with it, was more than anything like, okay, I'm excited to see how this plays out in the next one.
Yeah, think about what I'm saying really hard. Think about what Tam's saying. We loved playing this game. It's just one thing about it threw us off a bit. That's it.
And the reality is, if you're going to go online and yell at anybody about anything, Sean doesn't like Super Metroid. So just go find him on Twitter.
Don't bring that up. You know what? Sure, fine. I'll take that one because I'll own that one,
All right. I think that's going to do it for this podcast of where we discussed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on Bombcast Revengeance. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Really good episode, really good discussion. We'll be back with a regular Bombcast next Tuesday. There's plenty more happening on Giant Bomb this week. Be sure to check out giantbomb.com. For Mike, Sean, Tam, Lucy, and Emma, I'm Jeff Grubb. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Jan for producing. Until next time, everyone, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Dun, 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 dun.
Now, all right, let's pull up time.isabel.
To be clear, everyone, I just like the later Metroid games better. Don't let this man drag me like
Sean, this isn't going to be in the show. It's just how it is.
Does it count? Does it count?
Jan, I edit this show now. I can splice in wherever hell I
want. Folks, when the game releases, I will talk about my specific boat scene.
He has a different boat scene.
Jan, you need to DM me after this because I'm really curious what you're talking about.
I took exhaustive screenshots. I'm ready to make a video essay.
Perfect.
All right. Let me know when everyone has time.is up.
I do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let us clap at 45 and 50. 4550. Beautiful. All right, you can go ahead and stop those recordings.
Excellent.
Super fun.
I will drop a drive link here if anyone needs to skedaddle.
I will find somebody for us to raid.
Yeah, we will go raid. Appreciate everyone's time.
Wouldn't it be cool to sleep?
Thanks again for everyone who came in with the Shibuya Kaho raid earlier. If you stuck around, that was a very nice thing for her to do.
That was awesome, yeah.
Aww.
Where is the link?
I will drop it here in just a moment.
Okay.
Next lander.
And that Lorcana expansion's coming out tomorrow, baby. I think me and my brothers are getting a box.
Don't tell me that, Mike. Don't tell me that.
Getting a box. We're getting a whole box of boosters.
If you stream it, I'll watch it. I'm going to put it in the crew text, which is the channel right above this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Sweet.
Drop those things.
Thank you.
Sean, I'll make the page for you, bud.
Chat, head over to Nextlander. We're going there. We're raiding there.
Go read my review, please.
Go
it's
read
a good read.
Tam's
Everyone
review.
should check
Yes.
it out,
Read mine, but read Tam's first.
Have both tabs open. It's easy.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
You got
Very
two
easy.
eyes.
Yeah. One per review.
But have like two
alright,
tabs open.
Oh, did the raid take or did I screw it up? I might have screwed it up.
Okay.
Oh no, there it goes. Okay, so
Oh, it's
in
going, yeah.
in 5 seconds, everybody.
All right.
You gotta run.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Let me know when